Ever wondered why the winters of 1960s Britain feel almost enchanted when people look back on them? From snow-blanketed streets to rosy-cheeked children racing downhill on battered sledges, those chilly months weren't just cold, they were unforgettable. Before constant screens and busy roads, life slowed right down, leaving room for cocoa-scented evenings, frosted window panes, and neighbours checking in with a friendly knock. Here's why those winters remain some of the most cherished in Britain's collective memory. A season when ordinary life felt just a little bit like a storybook. Britain in the 1960s saw winters unlike anything most people experience today. None more so than the big freeze of 1962 to 63, one of the harshest on record. Snow began before Christmas and lingered in parts of the country until early March, blanketing towns and cities in white and turning even soot-stained industrial streets into fairy tale landscapes. Chimneys poked through snow-capped rooftops. Footprints etched delicate patterns across pavements, and children awoke to fresh layers ready to be trampled and shaped. With roads frozen and buses stalled, families trudged on foot through the biting cold, while milk bottles froze with cream caps popping and canals iced over for secret skating adventures. The snow caused chaos, but it also brought awe and wonder. Streets were quieter, life slowed, and people spent more time with neighbours and family. Compared to today's milder winters, snow then settled for weeks, shaping routines, landscapes, and memories. Street lamps glowed through swirling flurries, railway tracks disappeared beneath white blankets, and boots crunched on untouched snow. For many, those long snowy months weren't just cold, they were magical, transforming Britain into a place lifted straight from a storybook. Britain in the 1960s didn't hurry in the way it does today, and winter made the pace even gentler. With fewer cars on the road and far less traffic, heavy snow brought movement to a near standstill. Roads became quiet ribbons of white, sometimes unusable for days. Deliveries ran late, buses stopped, and people simply learned to wait. Rather than frustration, there was often a quiet acceptance. Life paused, and no one rushed to fight it. The stillness encouraged neighbours to look in on one another, swapping stories and supplies, turning inconvenience into connection. When schools closed, children were suddenly freed from their routines. Instead of staying indoors, they piled out onto the streets, where sledging, snowball fights, and building forts filled the hours. Parents, trusting the neighbourhood to keep watch, let their children roam. The absence of smartphones and internet meant that entertainment came not from screens but from each other. Imagination guided play, a dustbin lid became a sledge, and a snowy alleyway transformed into a battlefield of friendly mischief. These spontaneous gatherings created memories far livelier than any scheduled activity. The silence of snow carried a different weight in a world already quieter than ours. There were no mobile phones buzzing, no constant hum of traffic, no 24-hour rush pulling people in every direction. Snow softened the soundscape even further, leaving only the crunch of boots and the distant laughter of children. Inside, homes were filled with the soft murmur of conversation, radio tunes, and the steady crackle of coal fires. Without endless digital distractions, evenings were spent reading, playing board games, or simply talking. Time felt slower, not because people had less to do, but because there was space to breathe. Tasks took longer, journeys required planning, and people allowed themselves the luxury of lingering. Winter seemed to stretch, giving families opportunities to share moments that might otherwise have been lost. The world outside might have been frozen, but life inside felt warm, grounded, and intentionally simple. In the 1960s, a snowy day didn't mean clearing the calendar. It meant embracing the pause. For children growing up in 1960s Britain, winter meant freedom in its purest form. The moment snow began to fall, youngsters bundled themselves into scarves and mittens, often mismatched, and raced outdoors without needing permission or supervision. Streets, parks, and even quiet country lanes became open playgrounds. Parents trusted that neighbours would keep an eye out, and children trusted that adventure lay just beyond the doorstep. Snowball fights erupted spontaneously, with hastily built walls of packed snow serving as bases for rival teams. Friendly battles stretched for hours, interrupted only when someone spotted the perfect patch for a snowman. Carrots were borrowed from kitchens, coal from sheds, and old hats donated to bring each icy creation to life. Every child believed their snowman had its own personality, standing proudly in the garden until the sun eventually reclaimed it. Hills, no matter how small, became thrilling slopes. Sledging didn't require expensive equipment. Anything would do. Children flew down on tin trays, bits of wood, or their dad's old coat, screaming with delight as they skidded across uneven snow. Some wiped out halfway, tumbling into friends and turning the fall into a burst of laughter. The cold barely registered. What mattered was the rush and the story to be told later. Of course, winter wasn't without discomfort. Wet socks clung to numb toes, and gloves became stiff with frost. Fingers and cheeks burned from the cold, but the moment children burst back through the door, relief awaited. Mothers handed out steaming mugs of hot bovril or cocoa, thick and sweet, to thaw their tiny hands. They huddled by the fire, socks drying on the hearth while they retold their day's adventures, each story more dramatic than the last. What makes these memories linger so vividly is that they were formed before digital distractions. There were no screens to capture the moment. It lived only in the mind. Imagination filled the gaps. A snowbank could be a castle, a stick a sword, a hidden corner, an entire kingdom. Without constant photographs or videos, the stories grew bigger, brighter, and more magical with each retelling. Looking back, it's clear that nostalgia plays a large role in how these winters are remembered. Childhood has a way of softening memories, wrapping them in warmth even when they were physically freezing. But that doesn't make them any less special. For many, the winters of the 1960s represent a time when the world felt safer, simpler, and infinitely more playful, when every snowfall promised not just cold, but wonder. Community lay at the heart of 1960s. Britain, and winter only strengthened those ties. When heavy snowfall brought life to a crawl, neighbours instinctively leaned on one another. People lived closer together, not just physically, but emotionally, and it was normal to knock on next door's door to make sure they were warm and well fed. Older residents were checked on without being asked, and families shared whatever they had, whether that meant a shovel, a loaf of bread, or simply good company. Shared hardship built quiet but powerful connections. When cars became stuck on icy roads, strangers joined hands to help push them free. Driveways were cleared collectively, with adults chatting as they worked, and children turning piled snow into forts moments later. It wasn't unusual to see groups with brooms and spades tackling a slippery pavement together, laughing as they slipped and slid. That sense of, we're all in this together, was more instinct than effort. Local life continued even through the worst conditions. Milkmen trudged through snow to deliver bottles, their footprints marking white paths across neighbourhoods. Postmen carried sacks through biting winds, bringing letters that warmed hearts more than any radiator could. Village shops stayed open, offering not just food but a friendly face and a bit of gossip. Without sprawling supermarkets, people relied on their local grocers, butchers, and bakers, relationships that made every purchase feel personal. A wartime spirit still lingered only 2 decades after the Second World War. Many adults had grown up with rationing and communal effort, and that resilience seeped into winter life. There was pride in pulling together, in coping with little, and in facing challenges side by side. That quiet unity meant no one felt truly alone. In these shared moments, pushing cars, sharing tea, lending a hand, the winter of the 60s became more than cold weather. It became a season of connection. Christmas. In 1960s, Britain carried a kind of quiet enchantment, untouched by the heavy commercialism that defines the season today. It was simpler, gentler, and perhaps more heartfelt. Families didn't feel pressured to overspend or chase the latest trends. Instead, the magic came from traditions passed down, familiar comforts, and the shared anticipation of gathering together. Houses were often cold around the edges, but inside, warmth spread from laughter, coal fires, and the smell of something sweet warming in the oven. Decorations were usually handmade or reused year after year. Children crafted paper chains, carefully licking each strip to build colourful strands that draped across ceilings. Real Christmas trees stood proudly in living rooms, their scent filling the house, often adorned with ornaments that told family stories. Icicles clung to window frames outside, while frost patterns etched themselves into the glass indoors, nature's decorations that felt just as special as anything store-bought. Communities shared in the festive spirit. Carol singers gathered on doorsteps, boots crunching through snow as they filled the night air with familiar hymns. In village halls and school gyms, nativity plays brought families together, with children proudly wearing tinsel halos and tea towel headscarves. The performances were simple and often chaotic, yet full of charm. Afterwards, families would gather for mince pies and warm drinks, chatting long after the last song had ended. Entertainment centered around togetherness. Radios played beloved Christmas classics, and families crowded around early television sets for specials that felt like real events. Homes with TV would often host neighbours who didn't yet have one, everyone squeezing onto sofas to watch the Queen's speech or a festive variety show. The flicker of black and white television only added to the nostalgic glow. Gift-giving was thoughtful and modest. Presents were fewer, often homemade or practical, which gave each one greater meaning. A knitted scarf or a new book felt genuinely special. Children didn't expect piles beneath the tree. The magic wasn't in quantity, but in the joy of receiving something chosen with care. The era held a unique mix of tradition and post-war optimism. Britain was rebuilding confidence, yet still cherished the rituals that gave it roots. Christmas in the 1960s blended old and new. Simple joys layered with hope for the future, creating a festive season remembered not for extravagance, but for its warmth and wonder. Homes in 1960s. Britain were a very different experience from the centrally heated houses we take for granted today. Many homes were cold through the hallways and bedrooms, especially during harsh winters, but the living room, often centered around a glowing coal fire, became the heart of the household. It was here that families naturally gathered, drawn by warmth and light, sharing stories, food and laughter, while the rest of the house remained chilly. Central heating was a rare luxury, so the coal fire wasn't just a source of heat, it was a social hub, a place where togetherness was unavoidable and intimacy grew naturally. Layering up was a necessity. Woolen jumpers, thick socks, scarves and gloves became everyday wear inside the house, while hot water bottles tucked under blankets offered welcome relief from frozen toes. Even simple acts, huddling together on a sofa, sipping tea, or reading by firelight, carried a deeper sense of connection. Windows were often foggy from the contrast of cold outside and warm inside, and frost crept along sills and panes, reminding everyone of the harsh world beyond the front door. Yet this hardship added to the charm. Winter was felt in a tangible, almost tactile way, and homes became sanctuaries from it. There was an unmistakable comfort in this closeness. The chill outside made warmth, conversation, and small pleasures inside feel more significant. Everyday life slowed, senses heightened, and ordinary moments, laughter, the clink of a teacup, or the flicker of a fire became memories etched into wintertime. In the 1960s, winter wasn't just a season, it was a sensory experience that made homes feel alive, cozy, and profoundly human. In the 1960s, British media and pop culture played a subtle but powerful role in shaping how winters were remembered. Colour television was still a rarity, so most families watched programmes in black and white, which unintentionally added to the timeless, almost storybook quality of snowy scenes. Snow-laden streets, glowing fireplaces, and bundled-up children appeared on screens in high-contrast monochrome, giving the season a classic, enduring aesthetic that still evokes nostalgia today. Radio remained a central source of entertainment, with festive specials and Christmas carols filling living rooms with music and stories. Families gathered around their sets to listen to seasonal broadcasts, sharing in the communal experience of song and narrative. Meanwhile, the cinema offered its own winter magic, with holiday films providing escape and cheer, and showcasing snowy landscapes that mirrored the country outside. This period also marked the first wave of television Christmas traditions. Shows like Blue Peter, festive variety specials, and adaptations of classic stories began cementing rituals that would carry on for decades. The imagery, music, and stories from these broadcasts became entwined with childhood memories of winter, embedding themselves in the collective consciousness. Black and white or early colour, these cultural touchstones contributed to a sense of seasonal wonder, shaping the nostalgia that makes 1960s winters feel so uniquely magical. One of the reasons the winters of the 1960s feel so magical today is the way memory softens and shapes our perception. People rarely recall the biting cold or the frozen toes. Instead, they remember the warmth of family gatherings, the thrill of snowy adventures, and the quiet hush that fell over streets, dusted in white. Childhood in particular has a way of magnifying wonder, turning ordinary snow into mountains to climb and sled down, and frozen puddles into ice rinks. These early experiences are etched into memory, carrying a sense of awe that lingers long after the snow has melted. As adults, that wonder is often romanticized. Looking back, the simplicity of life, the lack of digital distractions, the slower pace and the sense of community takes on a nostalgic glow. In contrast, modern winters feel milder, more predictable, and far more commercialized. Streets rarely stay blanketed in snow. Shops dominate the festive experience, and neighbours are less likely to gather outdoors. The challenges of winter in the 1960s, blocked roads, frozen milk bottles, and icy canals, now read as part of the romance, because shared hardship builds stories, connections, and memories. In many ways, the 1960s sit at a crossroads between old traditions and modern Britain. They were a bridge, capturing the lingering communal spirit of earlier decades, while hinting at the comforts and innovations to come. Remembered winters are thus more than weather. They are a snapshot of a society learning to balance hardship with joy, simplicity with progress, and community with change, a period where cold days created warm memories that have lasted a lifetime. And that wraps up our journey through the magical winters of 1960s Britain. If these snowy streets, cosy homes, and childhood adventures brought back your own frosty memories, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe for more nostalgic trips through Britain's past. Stay warm, treasure those memories, and we'll see you in the next one.